The Second World War was collapsing around Germany. By 1945, the Reich was burning. Allied bombers filled the skies. Soviet tanks were closing in from the east. And deep within Hitler's inner circle, whispers began to spread of a secret aircraft, a massive flying ship built in total secrecy, designed to do one thing: carry Adolf Hitler out of Germany when all else failed. That aircraft was the Blohm Voss BV-238, the largest and heaviest aircraft ever built by the Axis powers, a flying monster so massive it dwarfed every plane of its time. But was it really built to be Hitler's escape vehicle? Or was it just another desperate wonder weapon that came too late to change the war? This is the untold story of the BV-238, the mystery plane some believe was meant to fly the freedom. Number 1. The monster takes shape. In 1942, as Germany's fortunes began to turn, the Luftwaffe searched for something radical, an aircraft capable of long-range reconnaissance, transport, and maritime warfare. Dr. Richard Vogt, chief designer at Blohm Voss, a company best known for shipbuilding, proposed something extraordinary: a 6-engine flying boat so huge it could cross oceans, deliver troops, carry tanks, or even serve as a flying command center. Its name, BV-238, its wingspan, 19.7 feet 60 meters, larger than a B-22 Superfortress. Its maximum weight, over 120 tons, it would be powered by 6 Daimler-Benz DB603 engines, each capable of over 1,750 horsepower. But unlike other secret Nazi designs like the jet, powered Me-262, or the rocket, driven Me-163, the BV-238 wasn't built to fight in the air. It was built to endure. Blohm Voss engineers envisioned it as an aircraft that could fly 4,000 miles, stay aloft for 20 hours, and carry massive payloads across the Atlantic. On paper, it was Germany's answer to America's B-29 and possibly a plane that could fly to Japan or even South America. Number 2. The test flights. By mid-1944, a single prototype BV-238 VUN was completed. It was assembled at the Lebeck shipyard, its enormous hull resting on the waters of Lake Schal. Witness who saw it described it as a ship with wings. Its fuselage was so large that workers could walk upright through it. The wingtips stretched farther than a tennis court. In its first test flights, the BV-238 impressed even hardened Luftwaffe officials. It lifted off smoothly, its 6 engines thundering like a storm across the lake. It was stable, graceful, and surprisingly quiet for its size. But there was a problem, a big one. Germany no longer had the resources to produce it. Aluminum was scarce, fuel was precious, and the Luftwaffe was already fighting a losing battle in the skies. Still, rumors swirled among German pilots and intelligence officers. The BV-238 wasn't just a prototype, it was a lifeboat, a plan B, a way out for Hitler, should Berlin fall. Number 3. The escape plan myth. As the Allies advanced, Nazi leadership scattered across Germany, seeking last-ditch ways to save themselves or their leader. Some officials dreamed of a fortress Europe, a redoubt in the Alps. Others talked of fleeing to Argentina, where sympathetic regimes might offer refuge. And in that chaos, stories began to spread about an enormous aircraft moored at a secret lake, kept ready for the Führer's last flight. The BV-238, with its ocean-crossing range and massive capacity, seemed the perfect candidate. It could, in theory, carry Hitler, his inner circle, and even tons of gold or documents to a neutral country. The aircraft's designer, Dr. Vogt, never confirmed this theory, but Allied intelligence reports in 1945 did mention concerns that Germany might possess a large, long-range seaplane capable of reaching Japan or South America. It wasn't pure paranoia. The Allies knew Germany had already sent submarines, scientists, and stolen art across the Atlantic. So if the Führer had planned a grand escape, the BV-238 was the only aircraft that could have done it. Number 4. The discovery. In May 1945, as Germany surrendered, Allied troops swept through northern Germany. At Lake Schal, they found something incredible: the remains of a colossal flying boat, half sunken, riddled with bullet holes, and scorched by fire. The RAF had already found it before the Americans arrived. In late 1944, British reconnaissance had spotted the BV-238 prototype floating near Elbeck, fearing it could be used to evacuate Nazi officials or carry out transatlantic attacks. P-501 Mustang fighters from the 361st Fighter Group were dispatched to destroy it. They strafed it mercilessly. The fuel tanks exploded. The massive hull burned and sank beneath the lake's surface. The largest aircraft Germany ever built, and perhaps Hitler's last hope of escape, was gone. It had never flown a combat mission. It had never left Europe, and yet it became one of the most haunting symbols of Nazi desperation. Number 5. What could it do? Let's imagine for a moment that the BV-238 had survived. With a range of over 4,000 miles, it could have theoretically flown from northern Germany to neutral Spain, or even across the Atlantic with a refueling stop in the Azores, if modified for long range. Stripped of weapons and armor, it might have reached South America, where several Nazi officials did indeed flee after the war. In that scenario, the BV-238 could have carried not only Hitler and his closest aides, but also priceless treasures of the Reich, stolen art, gold reserves, and classified technology. But there was one big problem. The Allies controlled the skies. By 1945, even the most daring escape flight would have been nearly impossible. Any large aircraft leaving Germany would have been intercepted within hours. Still, the myth persisted, fed by post-war rumors, secret documents, and unexplained sightings of giant German aircraft over the Atlantic. Number 6. The engineering marvel. Beyond the myth, the BV-238 remains an extraordinary piece of engineering. Its hull was divided into watertight compartments, much like a ship. The cockpit was elevated, offering panoramic visibility. And its internal space was vast enough to carry trucks, torpedoes, or even a small tank. It was armed, too, with multiple defensive turrets housing 13mm and 2,000mm cannons. Engineers at Blohm Voss also envisioned military variants including BUD, a long-range maritime patrol bomber capable of hunting Allied convoys, a troop transport that could carry 100 soldiers, a flying hospital for wounded personnel. In another version, the BV-238 was to be equipped with radar and electronic warfare gear, acting as a flying command ship, an airborne nerve center for the collapsing Luftwaffe. But none of those dreams were realized. Only the single prototype ever flew before being destroyed forever. Number 7. The shadow projects. Interestingly, the BV-238 wasn't the only massive seaplane project in Nazi Germany. Blohm Voss had also designed the BV-222 Viking, a smaller but still enormous flying boat used for transport missions across the Mediterranean and Baltic. The BV-222 actually saw combat flying supply missions to Norway and North Africa. Some historians believe the BV-238 was designed as its ultimate successor, a plane that could connect Europe, Africa, and even Asia. But as the Reich crumbled, priorities shifted. Fighter jets like the Me-262 and rocket weapons like the V-2 absorbed what little funding remained. Gigantic aircraft like the BV-238 simply no longer mattered, at least not to a regime on the brink of annihilation. Number 8. Post-war myths and theories. After the war, the BV-238 became a legend, and with it, a magnet for conspiracy. Some claimed that a second prototype had secretly flown to Norway before the end of the war. Others insisted that it had been used to evacuate high-ranking Nazis to South America, a theory fueled by the real escape of figures like Adolf Eichmann and Joseph Mengele years later. The truth: there's no evidence any other BV-238 was ever completed. Allied records, factory documents, and testimony from Blohm Voss engineers all confirm that only one aircraft was built, and it was destroyed in 1944. Yet, in the fog of war, myths have power. And in the desperate final days of the Third Reich, even impossible dreams seemed believable. Number 9. The fate of the designers. When Germany fell in 1945, G.R. Richard Vogt, once one of the Reich's most visionary aircraft designers, found himself at a crossroads. The man who had poured his genius into the Blohm Voss BV-238, a flying leviathan that never truly saw combat, was suddenly a prisoner of the victors. But instead of being punished, Vogt was quietly offered a new life under the U.S. government's secretive Operation Paperclip, a program created to harness German scientific expertise for American innovation. By the late 1940s, Vogt was working for Boeing in Seattle. There, his radical concepts of asymmetric design, multi-role airframes, and modular construction helped shape a generation of heavy transport and reconnaissance aircraft. Engineers marveled at his unconventional ideas, many of which were decades ahead of their time. His fingerprints can still be traced in the DNA of aircraft that carried America into the jet age. It remains one of aviation's great ironies. The man who once designed a plane rumored to serve as Hitler's escape craft would go on to help his former enemies command the skies of the Cold War. History, as ever, has a strange sense of symmetry. Today, nothing remains of the BV-238. No wreckage, no replica, just photographs, blueprints, and a few haunting eyewitness accounts. But its legend endures because it symbolizes something larger than engineering. It represents the desperation of a dying regime, the extremes of human ambition, and the strange line between genius and madness that defined so many of the Third Reich's final projects. Was it truly built to rescue Hitler? Probably not, but it could have, and that possibility keeps the myth alive.